All right, here we are. We are on day 2, so you should have your notes out or some paper so then we can work on dividing rational expressions. So the first thing we're going to do is review. So using a graphing calculator, we're going to state the end behavior. Okay, so get out your graphing calculator. All right, so get out your graphing calculator, and then we're going to be writing in this function. So I'm going to go to y equals. I'm going to make a fraction, so I have -4 divided by x. Okay, and let's see what this thing looks like. Okay, and again, if you can't see that, you might want to zoom in or zoom out. So you can click enter and enter again if you want it further away. Ooh, that's way too far. You can also zoom in and then click enter again, so then I can see it pretty well. All right, so this is a different type of graph that we're seeing. Okay, we're not seeing a parabola, we're not seeing an exponential. We're seeing this kind of curve for both ways. So we need to think about the end behavior. So as x is approaching -infinity. So if you can see my arrow right here, as x is approaching -infinity, what's happening to the y? Well, the y is getting closer and closer and closer to the 0. Okay, if you notice that. So as x is approaching -infinity, the y is approaching 0. Now let's go the other way. When x is approaching infinity, so as x is going bigger, what's happening to y? Y is also approaching 0. Okay, it's not going all the way up. It's not going down at all. They are both approaching 0. So I drew a little graph to remind ourselves. Let me kind of fine tune that. I drew a little graph to kind of remind ourselves what it's supposed to look like. Okay, so you want to make it pretty clear that as x is approaching -infinity, f of x is approaching 0 in both situations, -infinity and infinity. All right, simplify the following rational expression. So this was day 1. Okay, so let's see if we can make this smaller. So 6 times 4x minus 1, neither of those I can make smaller, but 4x squared minus 5x plus 1. So if we just have the answer to this, guys, if you just write down the answer, we're not really doing a lot of learning. We're just writing the answers and moving on. So really make sure to take that time and that effort during the notes. You'll be in a lot better shape when it comes to tests and quizzes because you'll have that practice, okay? All right, so what multiplies to 4 and adds up to -5? Well, 4 and 1, if they are both negative, they multiply to a +4. And if you add them, it becomes a -5. All right, so I'm going to put that information back in. I'm going to put these terms back in and then solve. And then I'm going to be grouping them. All right, so I have these two together. What's their greatest common, or sometimes people draw a line. So the greatest common factor is 4x, and what is left over? X minus 1. With this one, I'm going to take out a -1, so then I also have an x minus 1. All right, so then my factors are 4x minus 1, and then I have x minus 1. So I'm going to put that in next to the 6 because we're multiplying these together. So I have 4x minus 1 and then x minus 1. All right, and then on the bottom, this 3x minus 3, well, I can take the 3 out, and then I have x minus 1 left over. Okay? All right. So, if I have this problem over here, okay, let's see what can we do? What do they have in common? Well, they have the 4x minus 1 in common, so those factors can be taken away. Also the x minus 1. And then what is 6 divided by 3? Well, 6 divided by 3 is 2. So that would be your final answer. So factoring, putting them together, and then taking away what factors are in common on the numerator and denominator. All right, so what do we have to remember about dividing rational expressions? There's a lot of different things out there. I learned flip that guy and multiply. So what you're basically doing is you're flipping the second fraction, okay? So I like to have an example in there. So if you have a over b divided by c over d, okay? And some people I know have learned the bouncy ball method, which is a times d, and then you put it on top. So like a bouncy ball, it goes down, then back up, okay? So then it would be a times d. And then the other bouncy ball would be b times c, and then that would go on the bottom, okay? So that's one way to do it. another way is flip that guy and multiply, which means if you have A over B, so A over B divided by C over D, what that means is it's A over B times D over C. So then it would be A times D and then B times C, which is the same as above. Okay, so either way works. Again, dividing fractions, learn your tricks and go from there. So the first thing you need to do, again, is flip the second fraction. That's the method I'm going to be using so then I can kind of right away do that. So that we don't want to make a mistake right out of the gate. So I'm going to rewrite it to make sure that I have it written correctly. Okay? And now I'm going to factor from there. All right. So from here we want to factor and see if we can reduce this answer. So I have A minus 2. That's already ready to go. And then I have my difference, my difference of squares. So I have A plus 2 and A minus 2. So I would want to make sure that I'm using my factoring rules. So maybe you want to make a review sheet of all the different types of factoring, and that could help you while you are completing this unit because, again, lots of factoring. All right, and then on the bottom, I took out the 3 as the greatest common factor and then went from there. All right, and then I have it times A. Okay, so from here I notice that I have an A plus 2 in common. And then let's see what else we had. There's nothing else we have in common, so then I can kind of put it together. So A minus 2 and an A minus 2, so I actually have 2 of them. And then on the bottom I have 3A. So that would be my final answer. All right, now let's try number 2. Again, if you want to do the bouncy ball method, you're just going to times these two and put them on top. So I have 7x squared times x squared plus 4x minus 21 on the top. And then on the bottom, I have x squared, and then I'm going to kind of do that bouncy ball. So x squared minus 3x times 21x. And then from here, I want to factor the best I can. So this is a trinomial, so let's do the x method, negative 21 and 4. So what are those numbers? Well, we've got 7 and 3. How do I get a positive 4? Well, I need that to be a negative 3. So I have 7x squared times, and then let's put these factors in, x plus 7 and x minus 3 on the top. Okay, on the bottom, let's see what's happening. So this first one, I can take out the greatest common factor, which is x, and then what do I have left over? I have x minus 3. And then this 21x squared, I can actually join it with this x, and then let's just make this 21x squared. So I took out an x from the first parentheses, okay? And then I'm going to join it with the 21x in front. All right, so from here, let's see what we have. So what can we reduce? So the x minus 3's, those can go. And then let's talk about this 7 and the 21. Well, they have a 7 in common. 3 is left over. And they also both have an x squared. So those can also be taken away. So now I have x plus 7 over 3. And there we go as your final answer. So very similar to the first day, just remembering that first step of flipping the second fraction, and then you're off to the races. So number 3, it is the y squared minus 16 will be over 1. So remember, I need to flip it. So let's do that. So I've got 1 over y squared minus 16. I want you guys to try this one. So what can I factor out? What can I factor out from there? And then what can I reduce and simplify and check back for the answer? All right, so your final answer should be 1 over 4y times y minus 4. All right, now let's try the next one. Again, flip the second fraction first. So I have 3 over 6k minus 6m. So we're dealing with k's and m's for this one. So let's see how we can reduce this and go from there. All right. Here we go. All right, so let's factor this first one. So k squared minus m squared, again, difference of squares. So I should have a k plus m and then a k minus m. And then I'm going to just bring that 3 to the front, and the numerator is done. Now let's deal with the bottom one. Okay, so let's deal with this one over here. So k squared minus 2km minus 3m squared. All right, so I need to figure out what those factors are. So I know it's k and m, right? K and m for both of them. And then let's see if I can figure out the factors. So what multiplies to -3 and adds to -2? Well, I believe that's going to be 3 and 1. And how am I going to get a -2? Well, that's going to be a -3, okay? So I'm going to have a -3 in front here and then a positive here, so that could just be a regular m. So don't be too worried about the k and the m. Just make sure that you start with the km, and then plug in the factors in the front. All right, and then you can factor like you're used to. All right, for this one, the greatest common factor is 6, and what's left over? K minus m. All right, so from here, let's see how we can reduce this. So I have, sorry about that. I don't know why I have a 2 here. That should be m, right? K plus m and k minus m. All right, so let's reduce that and take those away. You can also take away the k plus m's. And then what else? The 3 and the 6, they have a 3 in common, so there's a 2 left over. So what's left on the top? Nothing. So we're going to put a 1 as a placeholder, so then we know it's a fraction. And then I have 2 times k minus 3m on the bottom. Okay, so that is my final answer for that one. Okay, so 2 more, and then we are done with this lesson. Okay, all right, so flip this one. So I have 3 over x plus 7 multiplied to x squared plus 6x minus 7 over 8x squared minus 8x. All right, so let's finish this factoring and then go from there. So I have x squared plus 6x minus 7. So what multiplies to -7 and adds up to 6? So if I have 7 and 1, well, which one is negative to get a positive 6? Well, that would be -1. So I have x plus 7 times x minus 1 on the top, and then I'm timesing that by 3. And then on the bottom, I have x plus 7. I'm taking out the greatest common factor, 8x. And what do I have left? Well, I'll have x minus 1 left. All right, so from here, what can I reduce? Well, I can take away the x plus 7s and then the x minus 1s. And then I have 3 over 8x. So that would be my final answer. All right, the very last one, there is a lot to unpack for this one. All right, so first let's flip the second fraction. So I have k minus 5 over 9k squared minus 18x. I'm going to flip the second one. So I have 2k squared minus 5k plus 2 over 2k squared minus 11k plus 5. So again, we're flipping those two. All right, so we will have to do a trinomial for both of these. All right, so the first one, k minus 5 over. So let's factor first. Let's do the ones that we can knock out pretty quickly. And I have k minus 2. All right, so the next one, 2 times 2, we've got 4 on the top, -5 on the bottom. So what multiplies to 4 and adds up to -5? Well, that'd be -4 and -1. All right, let's plug those in. So I'm going to kind of show the work for that top one. So 2k squared minus 5k plus 2. So 2k squared minus 4k minus k plus 2. I'm going to bring this down. All right, so let's group these. So I can take out a 2k. I have k minus 2 left over. I'm going to take a -1 out of this one, and then I have a k minus 2. Therefore, these factors are the same. Did it right. So I have 2k minus 1 from the outside factors, and then I'll bring down the k minus 2. All right. Now I'm going to bring, so after all that, I factored the top. So I have 2k minus 1 times k minus 2. All right, so what I want you to do is I want you to factor this bottom trinomial, write it here, and then reduce what you can. All right, so your final answer, after all of that, your final answer should be 1 over 9k. So I hope this lesson went well for you. Please ask questions virtually or email us and let us know how we can support you with your learning. All right, have a great day, Huskies.